Alrighty, guys. So I was just scrolling through some news feeds the other day, looking for things to talk about, topics that would be interesting to bring up on the Access Blockbusters pod, and I came upon a little post on social media from somebody. I'm not able to confirm who it is, I forget. But the post was saying basically, look at all these shows that were, either beloved or big shows that came out in the previous couple years, and they've all been confirmed for seasons, or not season 3s, but next seasons, rather. So they're being renewed, basically. And I was just scrolling through the list, and I was like, oh yeah, Creature Commandos, we talked about that. And then I came upon Dune Prophecy. And I stopped and I said, wait a second. When did this happen? I feel like I would have heard about it. And so I was like, did I just completely miss the headlines that Dune Prophecy was renewed for season 2? I went online, and wasn't really anything. I was like, yeah, I don't think I really missed anything about Dune Prophecy. And then I found this little article, or a couple articles, talking about a quote from the star of Dune Prophecy Season 1, Emily Watson. And she, sure enough, basically confirms that Dune Prophecy Season 2 is happening. So I don't know if we've gotten official confirmation from anybody about this, but it certainly looks like Dune Prophecy is going to get a season 2. And I'm going to explain after this, after I read the quote from Emily Watson, because I always like to read exactly what people say so that we can, have all the context we need and we don't take anything out of context, no false headlines and things like that. Just want to explicitly talk about what people say. But after that, I'm going to talk about why I think it's an exciting thing. And even as somebody who didn't love season 1, but, thought it was decent. And so we'll talk about why I'm excited for season 2. So Emily Watson, who played Valya Harkonnen, the main character of the show, although there were a lot of quote-unquote main characters, and, Desmond Hart and the Emperor Carino and all that kind of stuff. So she gave a quote here, very short, couple sentences, and she says this, quote, "I think we're going to start," and she means start filming, "in the fall, and I don't know anything about Valya's story. I know nothing, so I'm just as excited as you are." That's the quote, and that quote basically confirms that Dune Prophecy Season 2 is going to happen, because, let's face it, if Dune Prophecy Season 2 wasn't going to happen, and the question was, oh, are you going to start filming it soon? The answer from Emily Watson or any other person in Hollywood would not be to make up the fact that they're going to start filming soon, but rather would be something like, oh, I had a really good time on Season 1, and I really hope that Season 2 is going to happen, but nothing yet. But the fact that Emily Watson feels emboldened to say, yeah, we're definitely going to be filming Season 2, and it's probably going to happen this fall, which, by the way, hints at a 2026 release date, which, is not bad. It's from late 2024 to maybe mid 2026 is not ideal, because, most shows in the past have been able to churn out seasons every year. We go back to the glory days of the sitcoms, a season every year, which is amazing. By the way, there were basically only, 6 months out of the year where you didn't have that show on, which is awesome. But that's not happening anymore. Kind of sucks. But if you can go about a year and a half between seasons, maybe 2 years, just under 2 years, I think that's not bad. It's not bad. So anyways, Emily Watson confirming that Dune Prophecy Season 2 is probably going to happen, which is, I think a good thing in terms of the story, just because Season 1 left a lot of questions open-ended. I think, while we got a little bit of insight into Desmond Hart and the fact that there is a thinking machine in his eyeball, I guess, or in his brain or something like that. And, we got some confirmations about his parentage being Ori Atreides and Tula Harkonnen. I still think there's a lot of questions unanswered about that character. There's, frankly, a lot of storylines that just weren't picked up. I think Kieran Atreides, rather, the Swords Master, and Inez, the princess, I think now they're on Arrakis with Valya Harkonnen, and I think that their storyline becomes a lot more interesting, especially because I thought those two characters together were probably, the princess and the Swords Master, I think, had one of the more interesting subplots in the show that just really didn't go anywhere. And I really like those two characters from the beginning, but they just never found the time for them. So I'd be interested to see where they go into Season 2. But I said at the beginning, right? I'm one of these people who didn't love Season 1. I did spoiler discussions for every single episode. You can go check all of them out in previous episodes of the Access Blockbusters Pod, or in individualized segments that are on the channel. But I'm very excited for Season 2, because this show didn't suffer for me in a fundamental way that, that would derail other shows. That would make me go, oh no, I don't really want to watch Season 2. And I think that if you have a Season 1 that suffers from a couple things, for example, the characters themselves are inherently just poorly written or just bad characters, right? It's really hard to recover from that. I talked about, earlier in the previous episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod about why Skeleton Crew got it right. And a primary reason was the characters, right? And if you have good characters in television shows, that's a really good foundation to build off of. On top of that, the storylines themselves, honestly, in Dune Prophecy were quite interesting. and quite, intriguing to think about where they could go in the future, especially. And the story itself was not bad. It was pretty decent. Really, the big thing holding Dune Prophecy back is something that is incredibly fixable, honestly. And that's why I'm excited about season 2, because the potential of this universe and the potential of this show is expansive. It's huge, right? You could have an amazing season 2. And really, the big problem that I had of season 1 was pacing. And pacing, look, I think pacing is one of the, it can be a big problem, and I think it was a big problem in season 1, but it can be easily addressed if the writers and the showrunners know exactly what the problem was and how to fix it. Now, it's also incumbent upon Max, right, to maybe give them a couple more episodes to play with, because I do think that a 6-episode season is just too short for a show like this. I think 8 episodes minimum is what this show needed. So I think also if Max announces 6 episodes again, I'm going to be a bit disappointed, because, sure, can they do it? For sure. And did they do it well in season 1? Not really. But I would think that, it's also on Max to say, hey, we get it. Maybe even one more episode in episode 7, but I'm hoping for 8 episodes at the bare minimum. So we'll see about that. But I think pacing, right? It's one of the easier things to fix if you're a writer. You can go, okay, so let's just focus up and let's go from here. I think actually to a much lesser extent, let's face it, I was not excited for Rings of Power Season 2. And I acknowledge a lot of you guys don't like Rings of Power Season 2. I'm not one of them. I really liked Rings of Power Season 2. I thought it was a huge step up from Season 1. I was not excited at all for Season 2 because I just didn't like Season 1. It was boring to me. And sure, pacing was a part of it, but there were, it had to climb those hurdles I was talking about. Just characters that were uninteresting, storylines that were uninteresting, and Rings of Power did a Herculean thing, I think, and it overcame a lot of those things. I think, the characters I wasn't as invested in, in Season 2. There were, other elements like Sauron, for example, playing Anatar, right? I think that really elevated the characters in the show, and Celebrimbor, for example. So I think that Dune Prophecy honestly has less of a lift than going from Rings of Power Season 1 to Rings of Power Season 2. I think if they can fix the pacing and they can just tighten it up, I think we have the chance for a great Season 2. So I'm excited to hear about this confirmation of a Season 2, but are you guys excited for Season 2? Again, I know Rings of Power Season 1, not the most popular show, not the most beloved, but I am glad that they are giving it another shot to have a Season 2. Let me know in the comments down below.